Shalom from Israel, dear family and friends, and we're continuing to mark the promises of God in our Bibles so that we can be ready to share them with others, to know where they are, and to really go back and meditate upon them and to study them. And like I said, to share them with others. God bless you. Shalom from Israel. And you know, all of God's shalom, all of his peace came to this earth through this land of Israel and the people of Israel, and the story of the redemption of the God of Israel and his Mashiach, his Messiah, Yeshua, who gave his life as a ransom for sin, who died and rose again, so that just by believing, you would have life in his name. He is the conqueror. He is the King of kings. He's the Lord of lords. At his name, the name of Yeshua, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that he is Yahweh, that he is Lord, to the glory and honor of God the Father. And in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, you know, a lot of these promises talk about not just a God that was at work thousands of years ago, but a God that's at work today and that will be working his plan of outworking the Abrahamic covenant until the end of time. And much of these promises, many of these promises consist of covenant promises made to the Jewish people. But as you are engrafted into that place of blessing with Israel, we see that the covenant promises can be applied to you. We are partakers. Those who are engrafted are partakers, not taker-overs of the promises made to Israel. And in the book of Romans, chapter 15, verse 4, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the Scriptures might have hope. And all of these promises that were given to Israel and that show us the character of the covenant-keeping God give us hope. And here in Romans 15, he says, let every one of us please his neighbor for his good, to building up, to edification. That's verse 2. And so we learn how to build up. We learn how to serve. We learn how to encourage by knowing the promises of God in the Scriptures. And in Nahum chapter 1, of course, all of it is a promise, the entire chapter. Most of it positive, I think. Some negative promises here to those who reject the outworking of the Abrahamic covenant, who decide to curse Israel and the Jewish people rather than blessing them and accepting their God. He says in verse 2, God is jealous, and the Lord Adonai Yahweh reigneth, revengeth, that is. The Lord Adonai Yahweh revengeth, and is furious. The Lord Adonai Yahweh will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserveth wrath for his enemies. So, you're either with him or against him. You're with his program or you're against him. Verse 3, the Lord Adonai Yahweh is slow to anger and great in power. You know, he's not willing that any should perish. So those that are his enemies, they can just as well turn to him and become his friends, because he's slow to anger. He's waiting. He's waiting. It's the reason he hasn't judged the whole world already. He's waiting, and he's long-suffering. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, verse 3. Mark verses 2 and 3. And will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord Adonai Yahweh hath his way in the whirlwind and in the storm and in the clouds are the dust of his feet. Verse 4, he rebuketh the sea and maketh it dry. He drieth up all the rivers. Bashan languisheth, and Carmel and the flower of Lebanon languishes. The mountains quake at him, verse 5, and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence, yea, the world and all that dwell therein. Who can stand before his indignation? Who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. Mark especially verse number 7. If you believe in the God of Israel and the Messiah of Israel, Mark 7. And if you trust in him, look what it says, verse 7. The Lord Adonai Yahweh is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knoweth them that trust in him. Sometimes we ask people, well, do you know the Lord? It says here that he knows you if you trust in him. If you trust in him, not if you do all these things, but if you trust in him, he knows you. Verse 8, but with an overrunning flood he will make an utter end of the place thereof, and darkness shall pursue his enemies. Verse number 9 says he'll make an utter end. Affliction shall not rise up for the second time. Verse 10, the end of verse 10. They shall be devoured as stubble, fully dry. Those that refuse the God of Israel and his free offer of grace. Let's mark 12 through 15. 12 through the end of the chapter. Thus saith the Lord Adonai Yahweh, though they be quiet, and likewise many, yet thus they shall be cut down, when he shall pass through. Though I have afflicted thee, I will afflict thee no more. There's going to be an end to his judgment, and there'll be a time when the Jewish people enter into his total blessing, and there'll be no more chastisement. 13, for now will I break his yoke from off thee, and I will burst thy bonds asunder. And the Lord Adonai Yahweh hath given a commandment concerning thee, that no more of thy name shall be sown out of the house of thy gods. Will I cut off the graven image and the molten image. I will make thy grave, for thou art vile. Okay, these are people that reject his way, a negative promise. Look at verse 15, beautiful promise. Behold, upon the mountains, the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, shalom. O Judah, keep thy solemn feasts, perform thy vows, for the wicked shall no more pass through thee. He is utterly cut off. You know, these feasts are going to be kept forever. And if you don't know much about the feasts of Israel, you need to really get in there and study, because they all point to the good news of the Mashiach, the Messiah of Israel, Yeshua, and his program to bring God's saving grace to the world. Until next time, God bless you. Love you so much. Hope to see you here, there, or in the air. Shalom from Israel. God bless you.